Okay, just want to give an update on the wing. All of the center ribs are now in, which means I'm done with step 8. Step 9, checking for some of these holes right in here. It's already done, so now I'm on to step 10. So I just want to give a little bit of a kind of overview about some of what I did and some of the harder parts. These wings are held on with stainless steel rivets, which, if I can get it to focus, look like these right here. It's a little hard to tell in the video, but the stem they used to pull that breaks off and leaves kind of the back in there. If you notice here on the back, you see kind of the ball, if it'll focus again, there we go. The ball that was used to form that shop head remains embedded in the rivet on this test piece. So I had a few rivets where that didn't happen on the actual wing itself, mostly due to there being a gap, and one was a burr. So if you notice here, kind of looking down at the rib meeting the spar, there's on a few of them that I tried to pull, there was a little gap right here that I didn't quite close, especially on rib number 1 on this front spar side. Right here, it was actually a challenge. You can kind of even see still how those two ribs are bent slightly differently. Made it a challenge, especially for this one right here, to get that gap out. So that took a couple tries. This one was also really hard to drill out when I had to drill it out because that gap was left in between the spar and the rib, which meant that the rivet, when I was trying to tap it out, got halfway in there and kind of got a little wider, which meant that it wouldn't finish going through the rib, or I'm sorry, through the hole in the spar. So I had to take off this whole side of the rib to move it aside so I could try to pinch that back shut and push it through the hole in the spar. So rib number 1 was a little bit of a challenge there. I had a few others where I just hadn't pushed it back tight enough. Those went in fine. But then rib number 3, here, this bottom one right there, that one was actually a real challenge because when I drilled it, it left a pretty big burr on the back of the hole. And I had tried to pull that rivet 3 times, no success. Finally was able to see with a mirror and a light angled from the side, which let me see some of the shadows on the burrs, that there were in fact some good burrs back there. And I had to kind of get to those. It's hard to do though because it's behind this bar bulb, or it's in this kind of trough of the spar cap there. So you notice, hopefully you'll be able to notice, that it's just a little thin channel in there. And I can kind of show you, finger for reference. I mean, it's much thinner than my thumb even. So you have to get a tool in there, but this top is also kind of bulbed over. I'm noticing from the end here, there's that lip on the top, which makes it hard to get around to the back of this, where the holes are. And then the bulb up here, you can't nick or mess up in any way, and you can see a rivet that's been set over here on the right. But that made it really hard to get to the back to deburr. So I ended up having to order some special tools, and if I get a couple of them out here, kind of show what some of them are. Some dental picks were helpful, and things like that. One of them that was really useful here, I ended up getting from Mixmaster Car, but it's this little guy. And you notice there's a little blade here on the end that kind of can be pulled back up against the hole and rotated. And that really helped get the burr off. And then it's got this little pin to push it through to kind of turn it sideways to get through the hole, and then you pull it back. So that one was a huge help. There's also this little guy, which is meant to deburr the back of a hole. So in this case, you stick it through the hole and it kind of curves up in the back, and you can scrape that burr off almost, or cut it off. And that one was super handy as well. Used that. Like I said, I did use a few different style dental picks and things. And then I also used this guy, which I got from a supplier of like end mills and things from, a company that would supply stuff for a machine shop usually. But it's a little abrasive ball on a flexible shaft, and it's a very fine grit. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, 200 or 250, something like that. But I was able to stick this through the hole as well and rotate it slightly to help just by hand. All these were done by hand just to kind of smooth that out. And playing around with it for, about 45 minutes or so, I was able to get it, between all these tools and some of the picks and stuff, and just really looking with the mirror, was able to get it smoothed out enough to get that rivet in. I also built this little guard here, and this kind of sits, if I demonstrate it here, demonstrate it on this front rib, sits over the spar cap, and then you can kind of see protects that spar. I'll go around to the other side, make it a little easier to see, but it protects that spar in case the rivet puller bounces. And this was a trick that Craig came up with, actually, just to kind of help make sure that if the puller bounces off the rivet when the stem snaps, that you're not gonna to bang it into the spar or anything like that. So just made out of a little sheet of scrap aluminum that I had, and cut it out with a nibbler, and then bent it with the vise and kind of the corner of my cart and stuff over there. So at this point, the hinge blocks are on, the strut attached blocks are on, all of these other blocks and fittings are riveted on. All of the center ribs are in, minus that one rivet that I've got taped off, and it says no there because that's done later on rib number 8 here. These tubes here are riveted in just fine. And I've got these bolts in through here, one down here on the end, and one farther down over here on rib number, I think this is 5, yeah, rib number 5. Then these, along with some rivets that go in the holes here, are going to hold the machine tail ribs, which hold the ailerons and the one side of the flap. So it's all looking pretty good. I tried to start drilling this hole, which just gets drilled all the way through with a 3/16 bit. Ended up kind of binding up on the bit, and therefore messing up my bit a little bit. So I ordered some new ones to finish doing that. So that'll be one of the next things. And I can get drag wires in this end bay there, and then this bay right here, and in this one as well, actually. And then all I have to do is on this last bay, I will put in some fuel tank straps and get the drag wires in there, and then basically be ready to attach the machine tail ribs and almost ready to trammel at that point. So I'm getting pretty close to trammeling, which is basically squaring the wing and setting the tension on all those drag wires. Gives it a lot of the structure. After that, there are some pulley brackets for the ailerons and a reinforcement cap on this rear spar. That's all drilling into the spar, and then a lot of this central structure is done at that point, and the work then goes to the tail ribs and the tail false spars and things like that, setting up for some of the shape around the ailerons and flaps and everything. So a little bit of an update about where it is, but some good progress. All the center ribs are in now, which feels really good.